So we'll get started, get jump started on component one. I'm about to share a lot of information with you about component one. Remember, you can stop the video at any time, slow it down, do some processing. You can watch the video several times, but this is to get you jump started on component one. It may seem like you're drinking from a fire hydrant at times. It may seem like just too much information, but this is a lot of the information you need to just give you a really good overview. So I'm going to share my screen. I'll walk you through a slide presentation, and I'll share this slide presentation with you. So the basis of component one is that you demonstrate your content knowledge. Now, you know, the other three components of National Board Certification are really on your teaching context. You feature your own students, your work with your colleagues, that type of thing. But this one is strictly your content knowledge, not how you work with your own students. It's huge. It comprises 40% of your score. That's nearly half. So there are 4 components, and this one is worth 40% of the whole thing. You'll go to a Pearson testing site to complete the assessment. It lasts approximately 3 hours. It may cover the entire developmental age range in your certificate. So for example, my certificate is Early Childhood Generalist, and it covers the age range of ages 3 through 8. So my assessment center, I might get questions about a 3-year-old, I might get questions about a 6-year-old, I might get questions about an 8-year-old, so the entire age range. The same as subjects. So let's say that you're doing generalist, it'll be all the subjects. Let's say you're doing ELA, you'll have questions about reading, writing, listening, viewing, speaking. So everything, a broad range. It doesn't matter what you teach in your classroom. Let's say you teach 2nd grade and you do just reading. That doesn't matter. Remember, this is the knowledge in your entire certificate area, not just necessarily what you teach. So that's important to keep in mind. More on that later. So again, the weight of it is 40% of the whole thing. So component 2, 15%, component 3, 30%, component 4, 15%, but this one, 40%. And that 40% is broken down into some different parts. So you have your selected response, which is multiple choice. We have choices and you just click one to select it. That's worth 20 of your assessment center points. And then you have constructed response, where you'll get a scenario and you have to type a response to it. And so there are 3 of those, each worth 6.57% of the score. So just to note here, it's worth a lot, worth 40% of the entire thing. And the assessment center is broken down into multiple choice and constructed response, where you type out answers. And so in this session, we're going to cover how do you schedule, how can you prepare, and what resources you have available to you. So how do you schedule? One thing that I'll say more than one time is be sure your name that you registered with for the National Board matches the name on your driver's license. If you already know that it doesn't, fix that now. Fix it now. So you may have to contact the National Board or go into your account and see how you make your name on the National Board account match your driver's license. If you get married at some point before you go and take the to the Pearson site to take your assessment, you just got to be sure that whatever name you registered with the National Board with is what is on your driver's license. So let's say your driver's license expires in February and you've gotten married and you're going to change your name to your married name. Well, then you need to contact the National Board and change your name to the married name. But the thing to remember is it has to match. How you register with the National Board has to match what's on your driver's license. You're going to schedule in the middle of the window, which I'll talk about more later. And you're going to call early to get that appointment date. So let's just jump right in and start talking about each of these. How do you schedule? Well, you want to always check that guide to the National Board Certification. Make sure you have your accurate dates, but almost always the testing window will open in March and be open through June. How do you know when it's open? You'll get an email from the National Board. Candidates, I always tell candidates, check your email very regularly. Make sure you're checking that email so that if the National Board sends you a message, you'll get it and you'll be aware of it and you'll know it. So when they send you the email that says the assessment center scheduling window is open, you better hurry up and schedule, because those appointments go very quickly. I tell candidates that, about February, go ahead and look at your calendar, decide when you want to take your assessment, so that when you get that email from the National Board, you can call this number, 888-288-3028, between these times, or you can go and schedule it, on the actual scheduling site. There's a website where you can schedule. So you can call or do it online. And when you do that, no matter which way you schedule it, try to have your top 3 choices available, because again, those appointments go quickly. So if you've looked at your calendar and you say, I want to go on this date, well, also have a couple of backup dates, because if you get on there, or they tell you on the phone, oh, sorry, those dates are all taken at the site that you want to go to, or those slots on that date are taken, then you can say, okay, check this date, please. Okay. And then if those are all taken, check this date, please. So have at least three when you call or when you go online to schedule. So that's scheduling. You'll get the email from the National Board, be ready to schedule. And I advise you, let me back up just a little bit, so that they'll be open March through June. Don't schedule like March, because it does take a while. Remember, this is worth 40%. So it takes a while to study. You want to make sure you're really, really ready. But also don't schedule like the last few days in June that are in that window, because anything can happen. I actually know people, I have good friends who schedule toward the end, and then maybe there was a death in the family or they got sick. They will let you reschedule, but obviously if you've waited until the last week and you need to reschedule, that won't be possible. So if you're going in June, I recommend the first week of June to give yourself wiggle time. So don't go too early, and then don't schedule too early and don't schedule too late. That's the takeaway there. All right, so then once you've scheduled, how do you prepare? Well, on the National Board website, there are policies and guidelines. Read those, be familiar with those. There are descriptions for your constructed response. Remember, there are 3 constructed response where you type things out. And then there are scoring rubrics for those. Be familiar with those. We'll help you get there. And of course, you're going to review your National Board standards. All the questions are based on those standards. And then there's this website. And remember, you'll get this slideshow, so you can click on it and play around. But there are a lot of tools there for you, a lot of study tools. Don't skip this. Use everything they give you. Everything is designed to help you be successful. Take advantage of it. All right, so policies and procedures. Well, remember, you can click here. I'm not going to read these to you, but I'm just telling you, you need to click here and read these policies and procedures. And I am going to, let's see if I can click this. No, it won't let me go there. But when you click there, you'll see that it gives you all the directions for how to reschedule, things you can take in, things you can't take in to when you're testing, and that type of thing. How do you study for the selected response? How do you study for the multiple choice? Well, I am going to show you some sample selected response, and I'm going to look at the health And so I'm going to stop the share on this, and I'm going to pretend that I'm a candidate. I'm trying to get certified in health, which I'm not, but I'm just using this as an example. So I'm going to share my screen and show you where to find all of this on the National Board website. So here it is, and it will be, I'll click Get Certified, and then I will go to Candidate Center. I could click here and learn a lot about the assessment center. But for now, I want to pretend I am a health candidate. So first timer returning. Here are the assessment center policy and guidelines that I talked about. Okay, health. All right, there you go, health education, and there's only one developmental level. So here it is, it opens, this is component 1. So I open this, and guess what? This is a great go-to. I would print this. I recommend printing everything, writing notes in the margins, highlighting, starring all the really important points. And you'll notice I'll have sample items and scoring rubrics. Now, no matter what certificate area you are, let's say you're math, you'll have sample items for math and scoring rubrics for your math constructed response items. So let's go. I want to show you this. Everybody has a table. There's a table that tells you which standards will be on the assessment center. And for health, standard 2, and then this other part of standard 2, and then standard 3, and this other part of standard 3. So, hey, it looks like just 2 and 3. So I'll need to say just standards 2 and 3. That's good to know. Sometimes people think, well, you know, I have 16 standards in my certificate area. There's no way I can study all that for assessment center. You don't have to. This table in your document is going to show you which standards you'll study and which portions of the standard. So like this part of standard 2, I can go to my standard, and I know I have to study personal health, nutrition, prevention and control of disease. See, it tells you which parts of the standard. And it also tells me 25% of my multiple choice items are going to be from this. 20% will be from this. 25% will be from this. And 30% will be from this. Ooh, 30%, a whole third is from this. So that sort of tells me how to spend my time studying, right? Okay, so I'm going to stop that share, and I want to go back to sharing my slideshow. And this is where we were. So just remember that you need to find the table for your own certificate area and learn about what percentage of questions come from the standards that will be at your assessment center. Because to do well with these SRIs or multiple choice, you have to be familiar with those standards. So let's look at this example that I put together. This is an example from health. If I had stayed in that other document where we found the table and scrolled down, you would see that there's lots of sample items. This is one of the ones from health. Consuming which of the following foods on a regular basis is most likely to help promote bone density and skeletal health? And then multiple choice, and you would pick one. Well, the answer to this is not in your standards, right? So it doesn't say in my health, if I were a health candidate, I could look at my standards document, and it wouldn't say you need to consume spinach, kale, broccoli, and sardines to promote bone density and skeletal health. What it will say is, this slide will show us this. Here's what the standard says. Accomplished teachers know the major concepts of nutrition. They have a working knowledge of nutrients and related topics, such as food value, recommended daily allowances, food guide pyramid, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that is an example of how this standard might show up in a multiple choice item, or an SRI, selected response item. So the standards guide you on what to study. So a few important points to review. The answer to the question will not be in the standards. But the standards state things such as you must know the major concepts of nutrition. And then you would use the standards as your study guide. So you would start to study the major concepts of nutrition. You can go to a health education website and learn all of this, okay? So you look at your standards, turn it into a study guide, and then go online and start studying those topics. So that's an example of how to study for the multiple choice. Now let's look at how you might study for the constructed response items, where you get these scenarios and you have to type out answers. And I'll just stick with health. And what you're always going to get is a description, a sample prompt, a rubric, and then I'm going to give you a link to a worksheet. So I'm going to go back. I'll stop sharing this. I'll go back to health, and I'll look at one of those samples, constructed response from health. Okay, so if you keep scrolling down in your document, remember you all have one. You have here, this is where your table was for your selected response. And then just below that, you'll have what your exercises are for your constructed response. So we have SRI, selected response items, and we have CREs, constructed response exercises. And so in health, I have an example of exactly what each of them is. I have to show an impact of risk behaviors, and it could be alcohol, tobacco, or other drug use, on personal health and wellness. And then I'll have a prompt. In exercise 2, healthy and unhealthy relationships. Okay, so I need to learn about healthy and unhealthy relationships because I know that this prompt is about that. And then components of health, interrelationship between physical, mental, emotional, social, and spiritual health. All right, so that gives me, that narrows it down, okay? Narrows it down a lot. People say, oh, you can't study for that. You don't know what you'll be asked. That is not true. That is absolutely not true. You have to study. You don't know exactly what you'll be asked, but it is narrowed down enough that you know what to study, and you'll be asked something from something that you studied. So let's keep going. And I want to go to the part. Here are the sample SRIs, sample multiple choice. And you'll notice I got the sample one. This is the one I used on the presentation, came straight from there. So let me go down, and then you have lots of those that you can look at to sort of get an idea. And then I want to go down to constructed response. And this is wonderful. It does not matter if you're health or if you're early childhood generalist or science or PE, whatever your certificate area, you have all of these actual exercises that are like retired prompts. So these were actually used. You will not get this one, obviously. This is just to help you study. You won't get this one, but this is one that was actually used. So it gives you an idea. And so remember when we knew we had to study risk behaviors? Well, here's an actual example of that. And then it tells you exactly how it will be scored. Which is your rubric. So you have the rubric ahead of time. So all of this is the same rubric you'll have the day that you go into the assessment center. This is the same thing that you'll have the day that you go into the assessment center. So I just want to say that no matter what your question is the day you go in, this will look exactly the same. Remember, it is timed 30 minutes. So knowing all this ahead of time, studying it, having it all in your head is going to save you a lot of time on assessment center day. This you will know ahead of time. Here's the unknown. There's one unknown here: alcohol abuse. You don't know going in that it's alcohol abuse, right? And again, you won't get this one because these are samples. But what did it say up here? This is what your actual introduction will be. Examples are alcohol, tobacco, or another drug use, or you could get poor nutrition. You might get sedentary lifestyle. You might get sexual risk behaviors. Study all of those. You'll get one of those, okay? So people say, oh, you can't study. You don't know what you'll get. That's right, but you know you'll get one of these. And then here's your rubric, and you know exactly what you have to do to score well. You have to answer every part of the prompt to score well. Your support provider is going to help you prepare for this in your own area. So remember, I'm just giving you the overview, but your support provider is going to tell you exactly how to study. So you have samples for all of these: sample exercise 2 and a rubric, and sample exercise 3 and a rubric. Okay, so multiple choice and then your constructed response exercises. And you don't know, what any of the questions will be, but this guide, this document that I opened shows you exactly how to study. And you do have to spend a lot of time studying. Remember, this whole thing is worth 40% of your score. So this is an overview. And your support provider, your national board, we call them a PLF, and you're all going to be assigned to one, is going to help walk you through how to study for this. Nobody can study for you. You have to do it. But we are really going to help support you in how to study for it. So let me see if there's anything else left in my, we looked at the description, sample prompts, rubric. I'm going to give you a worksheet, remember. So where do you go from here? Well, after you meet with your support provider, you're going to start studying, okay? We recommend that you study a little each month, spread it all out, and then when it gets close to the day that you go and take the test, study, like really start studying intensively. But if you have not started studying like months ahead of time, you might get yourself in a real bind because there is a lot to study. So how do you study besides what I just said, besides using your standards? Well, this is a compiled list from a lot of people who have done very well, a lot of national board certified teachers who did really, really well at the assessment center. And they say, and I am included in this, I studied a lot of textbooks. So like I went to the used textbook store, I got some textbooks, I sold them back, but you can study textbooks. So like let's say I'm a health educator. I can go to the college bookstore, I can go to the health education section and get just like a really good comprehensive one. Just one textbook is usually enough. Professional journals, I'm gonna go online and I'm gonna see what the health educators are reading. So what are their professional journals? And then I'm gonna go to their website, health educator websites. And of course I'm gonna study my standards, all right? And here are some study sites. Remember, you'll get this presentation so you can click and you'll see things that you can study. And then we have at USM's World Class Teacher Program a Google Drive, and candidates for years have been putting study materials in the Google Drive for each certificate area. You'll have access to that. We also expect you to add some things to it. Your support provider is going to talk to you about that. So I recommend that, well, skip this for now. We're going to do this later in the year. We're going to do a practice assessment. But I do recommend that you go ahead and, start making a study plan and just do a little studying. If it's the fall, you just need to get your plan and start gathering things. If it's the spring, get going. Like really, really, gather some stuff and start studying pretty intensively. So again, at some point, we're going to take this practice assessment, not now. Your support provider will do this with you. But for now, that's an overview. That's an overview of component one. It's enough so that you can kind of know in your head, oh, okay, that's what component one is about. I go someplace, I make an appointment and go someplace. I take this test on a computer, and if I want to do well, I start studying ahead of time, and there's a document on the National Board website that helps me start doing that. Okay, so that's your jump start for component one.